What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Gabe Yanez and I, we are on for our weekly episode. Gabe, I have a question for you. When's the last time that you said the Pledge of Allegiance?
Shit. School?
Right?
Which is a very long time ago.
Dude.
Do they still do that, by the way?
Yes. So, dude, maybe not at public schools. I'm sure it'll maybe come back with the changes in administration. But as of recently, like for years, right, I'll be like on and off. I'll drop off the kids if I can at school. And so we normally record at 8:30. They have school that starts at 8. So if after my workouts and whatever I can make time to go to the school, I'll go in for morning assembly. Every morning, bro. Every morning at their school for the past X amount of years. Pledge allegiance, prayer. And I'm telling you, man, like when I miss that, it just, I don't know, there's something about it that just starts your day off like on the right foot. It's kind of like just a moment where you take 10 minutes, you're at morning assembly, you say the Pledge of Allegiance, and you have a morning prayer, and then boom, everybody's off on their day. So that's what happened to me this morning. I'm ready to go. And I just wanted to ask you that question because one day when your kids are at school, maybe they'll be in a school where they say the Pledge of Allegiance, maybe they'll be at homeschool, who knows? But it's a good thing.
Yeah, now that we're getting closer and closer, I mean, we're still not super close, but I've mentioned this in the past that it's kind of like something we've thought about, but we're like 95% going to homeschool. But maybe we'll do it here. Makes sense to do it here. Little Pledge of Allegiance, start the day with the kids.
Bro,
Hell yeah.
I'm telling you, dude, it's like everybody just like, it's just like, yeah, you know, like, and it just brings some like US pride that I feel like right now is like, dude, I was watching one of the press conferences and I just feel like the US pride is like strong right now. At least maybe that's my own like perception, but that's an example of like just starting the day off right and then boom, on to the next thing. That's it.
For sure, man. It's definitely an interesting time.
Dude, did you see the White House press secretary? Did you see her talk about the fact that they're now going to have seats in the front row? Did you see this?
I saw like a headline, but I didn't click into it.
So basically the headline is so, man, this woman, I believe her name's Catherine. I'd have to look. Very articulate, super articulate. And so she's going off. She's saying, ding, 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 ding. This is what the president's done. This is this, this is this, this is this. She goes, we're making a change. She goes, we're reinstating 400 people that lost access to the press corps or whatever it was. But we're also recognizing that public perception, especially from the youth on mainstream media, is at an all-time low in terms of like trusting them. And so many people are getting their news from podcasts or these other type of like fringe, whatever, right? And so she goes, as a byproduct of that, we want to make sure we welcome those people and give them a chance to share that message as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to have an application process. And she went over this. She's like, we're going to have an application process. And for anybody, creator, influencer, podcaster, whatever, you could apply. And we're going to give you a front row seat and you're going to get the first questions when you show up. And so sure enough, there was 2 guys there that weren't normally like mainstream media and they got to ask their questions. I thought that was really, I don't know, dude, I think it's a huge step in the right direction because they're giving them a microphone to go directly. And I thought it was pretty cool. It's an example of like kind of like open sourcing this and how I think media is changing.
It's so crazy how much has changed just through this past election and how much is going to change moving forward, where people are getting their information, what TV like even is, you know, like you start even then thinking about AI and how AI soon is going to be able to like make movies and make shows. And that's why all these streaming services are doubling down on sports, because sports is like the last thing. It's the last thing that won't be able to, you know, like no one's really getting their news from news channels anymore. If movies and shows can just be made by AI, like sports is the one last thing that really matters that you would like want to watch on TV. So if those come over to streaming, then it's like, what's the point of TV anymore? You know?
So how are they going to make, okay, remember when we put into the Google AI, like we put in one of our ebooks and it basically created a podcast with 2 different voices. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. So
that was mind blowing, by the way. It was mind blowing.
So could I record a podcast with you without you? Like AI could basically take your voice, because right now, for full transparency, Gabe and I are having a real conversation. This is
Really
a real
is.
life conversation. I think so, at least. Maybe you're a robot, but anyways. But what is the future? What does it look like right now, based on what you've seen? Because I know you're pretty deep into the AI world. You've been talking about it and exploring it probably more than anybody I know for the last couple of years, I'd say.
Yeah, man. And it's funny because a lot of this stemmed from like pandemic, getting super into collecting cards, getting super into the NFT space. Like that like arc for me, like just made me learn so much about a lot of like the digital space and experiment with a lot of stuff that I think, gave me a big leg up in just like being familiar with a lot of these things. I was using Chat GPT. Man, it's got to be like 2.5 years now. And I think it's been incredibly helpful at just like understanding what it can do, what it can't do. Like, dude, I use it for so much stuff now. And I just heard a podcast the other day. Dude, it's mind blowing the things that are out there now. Like it's impossible to keep up. There's this app called Lily. Have you heard of Lily?
No, dude, you always bust out like, oh, you haven't heard of.
Well, no, this is pretty like this. I heard about this for the first time. So Lily is basically, you might be familiar, but the marketing team uses this thing called Zapier for a lot of things. And Zapier is super simple. Basically, it's like you link different apps together and it's like, if this app does this, make it do this. Like we have a bunch of like automations in Slack and a bunch of things in email with Zapier. Lily is Zapier, but with AI in the middle. So it can not just connect things, but it can think and connect things. And the guy that was talking about it on the podcast was talking about how he uses it just in regular life, in real life. So to give you an example, he was saying that he has a Lily automation set up because there's a bunch of restaurants that he likes to go to that still require calling in to make a reservation. He doesn't want to do that. So he set up this automation where he'll just like text in how many people in the restaurant he wants a reservation at, and an AI voice will call the restaurant and make the reservation for him. And it can do that. It's just mind blowing.
Okay. So let's just say Sally calls the restaurant and says, hey, I want to make a reservation for John for 5 people at 5 p.m. And then Sally says, oh, we're not available at 5 p.m., but we're available at 5:30. Would you like that? Is the AI bot able to respond back to that?
It can do all that because you'll link it to your calendar, you'll link it to your availability. He says it's even trained on his food allergies and sensitivities. So it'll be able to like communicate that with the restaurant, just get everything set up, and then the reservation will pop up on his calendar and he's good to go. He was talking about all these things that he uses it not just professionally, but like personally. Like I was thinking about doing this for us. For podcasts, he'll have something where he'll have a podcast guest set up and AI will just go and, go on the web, go on LinkedIn, go on whatever, and create like a 1-pager,
like a profile.
Profile bio, like interesting things to ask, whatever, do all that prep work for him and just deliver it to him. It's crazy the amount of stuff it can do. And it's also crazy just at the rate in which these things are improving, because if you've been using ChatGPT as like the example that I've been using for a while, the differences in version 3 and version 3.5 and version 4, because if you think about it, the way these things improve is exponential. The more people that are using it, the more it's learning, the more it's just like refining, the better it's getting. And then more people use the next version and it's exponential how much more it's learning, how much quicker it's learning, and so on and so forth. And now you have like the whole DeepSeek thing with the Chinese AI, and it supposedly is doing it a lot cheaper. And
like 7 billion instead of 700 billion or something like that. And for those of you who are listening and like, dude, what are these guys talking about? I come here for fitness content, not AI. The reality is that if you're not at least considering AI, I think you got to think about how it could impact you in your workspace and your business. I mean, whether you're an entrepreneur and you own a company, or you work for somebody, or you work at a company, dude, I'm telling you, AI can somehow, some way improve efficiencies in your life, or at least you should be aware of what it could do. And then you're like, dude, like for example, this dude who wants to use it to make a reservation for a restaurant, I'm cool off that. I'm just going to call, because to be honest, I want to talk to someone. I want to talk to a human, be like, yo, what's up, dude? And I think that there's going to be more and more need for that as AI grows as well, which is really interesting to me, seeing the growth of like the men's club and stuff. It's like with the growth of AI, what's going to happen on the flip side, right? Because anytime you go to these extremes, I think you got to find other opportunities. Otherwise, what do you do? Just like live in a world where you're talking robots all day? I don't know. It sounds weird.
Yeah. And I definitely feel I don't know if it's like pressure or, like how much is using it like too much? Like at what point we kind of talked about this in a past episode, like, you know, how you don't know any phone numbers anymore, or you like, I can't tell you a single really like street name in the town that I live because I'm either just throwing it in the GPS or it's a place that I go enough that I can go. But like no longer are the days where you're like, hey, 2 lights down to Main Street, then make a left, then turn on Walnut. Like I don't know what those streets are. And it's just kind of you lose certain skills because you use the tools accessible to you. And at what point are you losing skills that maybe you do need to still have for times when those tools aren't available? So that's definitely something that I think about a lot. But I'll give you 2 quick examples of how I use it just to like buy back time or like simplify my life, not even work-wise. We hosted Thanksgiving this year, and I actually saw a mom friend of us post using it for like recipes and shopping lists and stuff. So I tried it and I was like, hey, I have 8 people coming over for Thanksgiving. Here are the foods that they like. Here are the foods that they don't like. Here's what we want to do. Give me a shopping list, a schedule for the next 3 days on when to prep and cook everything, and like step-by-step instructions. And dude, it was so nice to have a full shopping list to make sure that I don't forget anything. Then to know like, okay, 3 days before, like make sure you brine this and set this up. Then the morning of the 2 days before, like prep this, chop up this, do this and do this. And it was just, and then at any point you can also go back in the thread and just be like, hey, remind me that one thing. And it made it so easy to just like come up with this like bulletproof plan for something that, you know, like, could I have done it on my own? Of course, but it just takes the guesswork out of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then this past weekend, I ask it for recipes a lot now, because it can give you recipes based off of like, hey, these are the ingredients I have. I want something high protein with good macros. And then it'll also then break down for me, which is super useful because this is just how I track my food. Great. And now give me the macros per 100-gram servings. And I have that information right off. Like I made this big high protein egg bake on Sunday that I just have in my fridge. And it's like the easiest like breakfast and lunch snack. It was like egg, cottage cheese, banana. You can have it sweet if you put a little bit of honey. You can have it savory. Yeah, you bake it. It's like eggs, a little bit of flour, cottage cheese, banana. It basically makes like a quiche type cake, but it's really nice because, like I said, you can have it with honey and it's more of like a sweet, or you can have it with like, you know, a little bit of cheese and some bacon, and it kind of is like an omelet. So it's the best thing to just have in the fridge.
You can bake cottage cheese?
Yeah. It's a good way to add protein to baking stuff. Yeah.
What? Dude,
mind blown.
Okay, so
mind blown. But anyway, send
me the recipe because I want to make something like that, because that sounds like it would be right up my alley.
It's good. And it's easy. You bake a whole tray of it and then you have it for the week.
Okay. Yeah. I might have to just ask AI, hey, send me what Gabe made on this date. And then it'll just, but no, it sounds really good, dude. But I think using it for recipes is a no-brainer. That's easy.
Dude, it's wild though. The implications, like if you go down a rabbit hole of all the implications it can have, and also like a lot of really positive things, man. Like, I don't know if you heard of the huge, you know, tragedy that happened last night with this airplane accident, dude.
Yeah. I mean, obviously. Yeah.
But like the example there is like, there is unlimited areas for human error. Like I remember this from when I was, you know, a student pilot and learning like air traffic control and those communications that are happening. Like I
forgot that you were like 100 hours into your flight.
Yeah. I got so close to ending it, and I had to put it on the back burner because my whole goal was to finish it before Charlie came, and then Charlie came, and now it's kind of in the back burner. But anyway, I'll definitely finish it at some point in my life. But air traffic control is an incredibly, incredibly difficult job, and those people are really well trained, and they have a lot of systems and you know, like redundancies to make sure that, like, you know, things like what happened last night never happened, because we're recording this when, you know, there was that tragic incident between the helicopter. It was a Army helicopter doing a training exercise and a regional kind of smaller American Airlines plane that was about to land at, I forget the airport, but it was in DC because it landed in the Potomac. And yeah, man, like something happened and they crashed. But that's just one of a million examples you can think of where if you can replace human error in, controlling, these aircrafts getting that close to each other, why wouldn't you? Because there's obviously a potential to save lives.
What do you think? I mean, so you've had like, how many hours of flight time have you had?
Probably like 60, 70.
Yeah. And I've had 0, right? So, and I
Yeah.
think most people listening have probably had 0. So how does something like that happen? Is it that do you think the helicopter, they just weren't communicating? So the helicopter is on like this, training exercise, and that's like a military focus. Then you have like a commercial focus, and there just wasn't communication between like the FAA and what, I mean, is that the only answer?
I mean, dude, a student pilot that didn't even finish his pilot's license, speculating on
So you're
this
saying
stuff
you're not a
is like
subject matter
the
expert?
most irresponsible thing ever. But I did hear a recording of like the helicopter talking to air traffic control, and he said he had the airplane in sight. Like, I was talking to Ariel about this morning. Like, the little that I know from when I was, training to be a pilot is air traffic will always tell you, because they have all the airplanes, everything that's in the vicinity of an airport, they have it on radar. So if they see two that are even remotely close and intersect, they'll make sure that you have visual on them. And then once you say you have visual on them, the responsibility kind of falls on the pilot, because if I can see the aircraft, it's easy in the air to avoid it. The problem is when you can't see it, because whether it's below you, above you, or it's like a really cloudy day, then you can get in trouble. But in the sky, if you actually see the aircraft, it's not difficult to avoid it. It's not like a crowded, street. You can just go up, down, left, right. And there are very specific protocols you're supposed to follow on depending on who's passing who, which way you're supposed to go. And an experienced pilot would know all that. So the strange thing is that the helicopter said that it had the airplane in sight. So if you're air traffic control, your responsibility is kind of like, that's it. Like, okay, the helicopter has the airplane in sight, he's going to avoid him. But they had that recording, or at least I heard that recording, and they said that the incident happened shortly thereafter. So I don't know what happened. I don't know.
Dude, it's super tragic. And it's like, I'm interested to find out more about that, just because like that shouldn't have happened. But I don't know how how would have AI have like, I mean, dude, are you talking about like, because you're talking about getting rid of user error. You know what freaks me out is like, I was in San Francisco not that long ago, and the Waymo. Yeah, like the the driverless cars, they're not like every now and then, like they're all over the place. Like, it's not like uncommon in the city to jump in an Uber, basically, that's not manned by anybody. And it's like, dude, I was watching it go through an intersection on an unprotected red, and I'm like, dude, this is interesting. And of course, it handles it great. It's like, man, some of that stuff though is going to be pretty wild. But I don't know how that would relate. Like, are you seeing a world where AI is basically taking over the controls, but you still have a pilot in there just in case?
Well, yeah, right. Like, you take away human error and there is no error, but then, that's the beginning of Terminator, right? Like,
Yeah.
You turn on the robots to take care of all the, airplanes and cars. And then they're like, all right,
They're going to come back and
now
get us
we're
or
going to
something.
revolt.
Dude. But the AI thing is really, we talk about it a lot here at the house, because Caden really doesn't like school. And he doesn't like going there, and he thinks he doesn't learn anything. And one of the things we talk about a lot is like, he had a book report, and like what's right and what's wrong. Like, so he paid Ava a couple of bucks to help him with his book report, and that's right or wrong. People would be like, dude, what are you doing? Be like, well, he's outsourcing. He's supply and demand, right? Like, I mean, he's figuring it out. But anyways, or you could just go and just ask ChatGPT to do a book report. But then the problem is you're not gaining the skills of reading, skill development on writing, skill development on this. But let's just assume you were graduated and your boss comes to you and says, hey, getting paid $100,000 a year or whatever. I need you to do this. And you could utilize tools like a calculator to solve the problem when you do it. If you could utilize tools like AI to solve the problem when you do it. So are we teaching kids? It's just a super slippery slope. And I don't know the exact answer, but that's something I've been thinking about a lot, because we're in the thick of it. Right. And it's like, it'd be like back in the day, and we've talked about this, like not utilizing the internet. It's like, that seems foolish nowadays.
You remember back in the days when like the math teachers would be like, you got to learn this stuff because when are you ever going to have a calculator in your pocket all the time? Like you remember that was like a thing?
Yeah,
And it's like,
the TI-83, bro. Do you remember the TI-83s?
I remember those.
Dude.
But now it's like the joke is like there's memes about it. It's like, yeah, literally we all have calculators in our pocket all the time. Like if you ever need to calculate something. And now it's crazy because like in the latest iPhone, I think it's just the latest, like you pull up the calculator and you can, it's scientific, like it's a scientific calculator. It's like all the super advanced calculators too. You can just swap between modes.
Yeah. I mean, the only time
not that I'm doing like, like passive trigonometry in my spare time.
like
some
algebra.
People must be.
I mean, dude, the only thing that I could think of is the only time I use, I guess I use like math. Probably the most common time that I use like just like off the top of my head is with tipping. Aside from that, it's like, I mean, if you're doing like some deep business work, you're probably gonna be utilizing some calculators and whatever. But it's like, yeah, when you tip, you should be able to add, a 20% tip on a whatever. That's pretty self-explanatory.
It just all comes down to like, you need critical thinking, people skills, communication skills, and reading, you would argue, are like, if you were to put in a bucket, the skills that like a kid would need to like be successful, like that's what they need and need to develop. Everything else I think is you can make the argument is some sort of busy work. It's some sort of like check the box because it's on a curriculum, because it's on a thing. And like some kids are going to like be good at it. Some kids are going to enjoy it. Some kids are going to hate it. And it's just like a thing that like, is that serving them? Yes, you can make the argument that's like, hey, this is a thing you have to do and it's discipline and you're not always just going to do the things you love. But it is a question that we've, talked about with Matt Boudreau and some other guests of like, what is school really teaching our kids? And what are the things that really matter, especially moving forward? And are they spending the majority of the time teaching those things, or are they spending the majority of the time like checking off boxes? And, that's where you have to make a decision. And this is all going to be super personal, family about the type of school, like where you send them, how involved you are, homeschool, not homeschool, whatever. All those options are out there. And I think the one thing that is cool is that it seems to be that there are more of those options. There
Tons.
are, apogee schools. There's what, Tim Kennedy and Matt Boudreau are doing. Homeschooling is just something that isn't anymore like, oh, you're homeschooling, like that's weird. Like, no, you homeschool. It's like been normalized. There's a lot of homeschool communities. Like I told you here, the really cool thing about the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym that I have earmarked to start as soon as, Shay can actually go, has a specific homeschool like group in class that's in the middle of the day for kids that are in the same kind of, situation and community. And it's cool that there are even those opportunities where, you're going and doing a sport or an activity with that group because it's going to be different, right? It's going to be in the middle of the day. It doesn't have to be after school. Take advantage of that flexibility, but also those communities exist. It's not anymore that like, and I'll know more about this once we're in the thick of it, where homeschooling is this thing where like, you're just you and your kids and that's it. And they're socially awkward and they're not around kids. Like that just isn't the deal anymore at all.
That's a false misconception. That's like old school. Oh yeah. Liz is reminding us, and this is a good segue into this. So we did have a question. So what we've been doing is we're having like a quick Q&A segment of these episodes that Gabe and I do. You could ask those questions. You could respond back to the Never Zero newsletter that we put out. We also put it on the Jason Khalipa Podcast Instagram channel. We put out a Q&A like tab. That's right, Gabe, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And so we had a question come in, which I think is relevant to this. And one of the things before I answer the question, this week or last week, I took the kids with me to San Jose Police Department where we just got on contract with them. And, I didn't have like any like super formal meetings, but I had to go there to go basically identify some equipment and some other stuff. I just brought them there. And I think something I'm going to try and do over the next 6 months, especially before Ava gets into high school, is just pull them out of school more often and take them with me to different meetings and different things to have exposure. Like I'm going to selection for Customs and Border Protection. I'm going to take Caden. Why? Because first off, I think it's badass. Secondly, I think you could learn something about just being exposed to this different environment. So I'm going to start doing more and more of that type of stuff. Because they're also at that age. It's good. But question, being from immigrant families where education is so valued, but also seeing how education is so accessible through unconventional avenues in today's world, do you quote unquote care if your kids go to college? Whew. I don't want to say it's a loaded question because it's not. It's a powerful, it's a big question. And they're asking us specifically if we care. I'll let you go first.
And this might be surprising given the fact that like, we're going to homeschool. And like, I think I've been very vocal on the podcast about like there being different ways to learn and how education is so different than school. Like I sign up 100% to like Matt Boudreau's like just mindset around education. But to get to the root of the question, man, like if I'm being brutally honest, like, do you care if your kids go to college? Like, dude, I care. Like I 100% am like, open enough to admit the fact that like there would be like a like proud dad moment about your kid getting into a good school. Like I can't shake off that like that value that society has put on it. It would feel like we've done a good job. It would feel like, and it's 100% about me. 100% about
it's 100% about you.
It's 100% like a same way winning a race or qualifying for the Boston Marathon, like is like, man, I put in this work and I got the accomplishment. Like I would be lying to you. I would be being 100% dishonest if I said that I didn't care if my son got into like an Ivy League school and like, I could wear the sweatshirt and like, you go to the sports games and you got like
put the bumper sticker on the back of the car, like proud
I wouldn't go
dad.
Bumper sticker, but I would do like hat, sweatshirt, like dude, 100%, like you're that dad. I would be lying if I said that didn't matter. Now, having said that, it just comes down to like what he wants to do and like what's best suited for his future and being honest. But I think that it's important to admit that allure is so strong, man. It's so strong. It's so strong to like let it be about you. So would I care? Yes. But I hope that and I think I will, especially like with time and just given, the fact that me and Ariel are on the same page about this, like as much as I would care, that would be less important than doing what I know is right, which is just letting them follow their passions and find their path, regardless of what that means. College, no college, finding, I don't know, like a trade they're super passionate about, starting a business, like whatever that looks like. All I will say though, that I think is an incredibly important thing that I know is pretty normal now, specifically, I think in Europe more than anything, is I think there's so much value and it's easy to do even if you get into a really good school. I think having some sort of gap, some sort of time between like whatever traditional schooling is or like, finishing high school or finishing whatever the homeschool equivalent of high school and getting into something like that where you're spending like time alone, whether it's traveling, whether it's going abroad. I think that is incredibly valuable. I think that that's something that I would like really, really encourage. But yeah, I mean, at the heart of the question, man, like, and a part of this is coming from an immigrant family. Like, it's just so deeply ingrained to you, like the accomplishment that some of this stuff is. And I don't think I'd be able to shake caring about it.
I'm surprised you answered it that way. Actually, I am. I wasn't. I was shocked,
dude. I'd be lying if I said the opposite.
Anyways, you're saying like this. I mean, dude, probably similar to your family. I mean, I remember, and I've shared this on the podcast. I mean, I remember, man, maybe I was like 15, 18, I don't know, just over and over and over again. My dad would be like, dude, they could take everything away from you, but they can't take away your education, over and over and over. And you have to go to college. You have to go to college. You have to go to college. Like, it was just like, to my dad, there was no, like zero other way. Like, you're going to college because that's how you get successful. And I think that nowadays, I think you're right. I think that a lot of parents have this perception, and it is partly them. I don't know. I think for my dad, literally coming from Iran, I think for him, it was like literally getting your education is like a tool that you could use to always have freedom. Right. And I think that was important to him. I think nowadays, I think there is a reflection on the parents. Like, they're like, oh, dude, yeah, like you see it, like, oh yeah, my kid, they got into, name the school, right? I get it. There's definitely that side. I think for me, it really depends on where I see the kid going. Like, for Ava, if she has a desire to get into medical, she's going to have to go to college. It just right. is what it is. And so I'm going to encourage that big time because there is no other path, right? But if there's another path to success for that individual based on what they want to do, I don't really prioritize it, right? Like I see both the kids going to college, but for completely different reasons. And I'm okay with that. But if I had, so for example, like if Ava's really interested in medical, she needs to go to college. If Caden's really interested in playing sports, and I think that'll happen, he's going to want to go and do that because it's going to be a lot of fun, man. He's going to have the best time of his life. But I think that there's a ton of value in the trades right now. I mean, let's just put it this way. If my son and daughter didn't have the interest they had today, I would try and encourage them to find a trade that they're really interested in, and I would have them become the best at it. And then they could start a business around that. I mean, dude, plumbing businesses, dude, they're crushing it around here. Electrician businesses, they're killing it because as we're getting in this AI world and all these different things, dude, those businesses are still going to be around. AI is not going to change the plumber's job. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not going to, they're not going to be replaced. But if you're a software engineer right now, and if you're a parent of a software engineer and you're spending $200,000 to send them to school to get a software engineering degree or whatnot, like, what are you thinking in the back of your mind? That job might become obsolete because now AI is actually creating the code. Whereas plumbers, electricians, and whatever, they're still going to be there. And same thing applies for doctors. I actually think AI can be really helpful and, augmented reality and being able to use virtual reality to be able to work on things. I think that it's actually going to enhance that. So that's kind of my take on it is like, I think in my case, both directions are going to lead towards college. But if they didn't, I actually wouldn't have an issue at all with it. I just want them to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we're saying the same things in many ways. For me, it was answering from the point of like, I'd be lying if there wasn't a part of me that would be like super proud if it ended up happening. Right. Like that's just 100%.
Look at what Liz just put up. Liz put up, the CNBC quoted that it is estimated that 18 years, which is when Gabe will be looking at college for his daughter, a college degree would cost around $500,000. Dude, that is mind blowing, right? Now, granted, there's exceptions to that rule and you can go to a JC and you can go to a different type of college, but I'll give you a real life example. Santa Clara University, my mom works there. They accept 2,500 people per class. They had 20,000 applicants and it's $70,000 a year to go there. Isn't that crazy?
That's bananas, dude.
And now granted, are 20,000 really serious people? Maybe half that. Let's just say it's 10,000.
Yeah.
But now a fraction of them are being accepted and they're willing to pay $70,000 a year. Dude, at some point it's like, where's your return on your investment, right? If you're spending $500,000, are you better off just investing that into a business and letting your kids succeed or fail, but they're going to learn a shit ton in the experience. So yeah, it was a good question that was asked. I'm looking forward to more questions. As you guys have them, make sure you guys either submit them back to the newsletter or submit them on the Jason Khalipa Podcast channel, Instagram.
It's fascinating. I was very fortunate. I didn't have to pay out of pocket because I went to a really good program that was part of like the city university system in New York. They have an incredible public system. That and the program that was in and academic scholarships and stuff like that. Like I didn't get any debt, but dude, I know a lot of people who, dude, it's like another mortgage payment. Well, at this point.
And it runs
like, you're
right?
in your 30s and you're trying to buy a house, you're trying to do these things, and you literally have a monthly mortgage payment already on student loans. It's insane.
Well, one of my goals as a parent is to allow my kids to have the freedom to choose because they don't have that pressure, right? So like one of my goals, financial goals, right, is to acquire, whether it's property or wealth in some way, to be able to send them off to college, to be able to put them in a position where they don't have this like ball and chain, for lack of a better term, that holds them back from making life decisions because they're doing it because of this, right? They should be making life decisions with just like, hey, this is how I think I'm going to be successful. This is what I want to do. But all of a sudden, when you have a ton of student debt, right, you're not thinking about, oh, can I go start a company? No, I can't because I have a $2,000 college debt that I need to pay per month. But maybe starting a company would have led to you thriving, so that's my goal, is to put them in that position eventually in whatever path they choose. You know what I mean? Dude, hey, why are we doing, so at Flex this morning, I normally always do our force workout. It's soon we're going to, be pivoting a little bit. But I love those workouts. But today I decided to do Flex because it was a rest day for force. And so I just picked out a Flex. 10 sets of 10 on bench press is just obnoxious, dude. It's just unnecessary. And I, on behalf of myself and everybody else who's on the Train Hard app, just want to tell you, dude, you can cut that down to 5 or 6 sets and we're going to be perfectly fine.
No way, man. No way. Dude, German volume training, look it up. It is such an incredible, and we did this last year in Flex too. It's such an incredible hypertrophy protocol that was popularized, I think, by Charles Poliquin. And it just, it's a ton of volume. You always superset with antagonistic movements. So we do bench press and pull-ups. And the goal though, on approaching this, so for anyone that's like, that does sound like a lot, you're obviously supposed to start with a weight where like the first set it's gonna be a much different weight than if you were doing 5 sets.
And it was tempo. For full disclosure, it was tempo.
Yeah, it's tempo as well. And then every week, the goal is not for you to finish the 10 by 10 the first week, or honestly, even the last week. Like, you should be doing it at a weight where, and this is in the notes, you should be doing it at a weight where potentially starting around like the 5th set, you're getting like, man, I'm getting 9, I'm getting 8, I'm getting 7, and you're kind of going max set every time because you can't get the 10. And the progressive overload of it is nice because then when you do it again the next week, you have your numbers down and you're like, hey, can I squeeze one more rep? So set 6, I knock down to 9. Can I do set 6 with 10? And then maybe I knock out after that. And you just try and like, tick away at extra and extra reps so that hopefully by the end of the whole cycle, you're actually doing the 10 by 10. But it's a really cool way to get so much quality work really close to failure with a relatively lightweight and a tempo. So the injury risk is actually pretty low. And the stimulus is incredible. I love it. I love it. And it's something that like, you really want to do something like this once a year is probably plenty. We'll do some much lower volume training in the next cycle to kind of back off so much volume. And I like doing it in January because I know that it's a time where a lot of people are like very motivated. You're kind of like, it's when you're like really on, which is a good time to do something like this because it is very taxing, but it's also a good way to like, if you're trying to put on some muscle, man, it'll jumpstart some sort of stimulus because it's just so much. It's so good.
What I liked about it is that I didn't have to. So this morning I actually didn't have a training partner, which is rare. And I told you I went against my rule. I rarely, if ever, bench without a spotter. But because it was sets of 10 with tempo, I knew I wasn't going to go very heavy. And so, I was at very, very light weights. And what's nice about it is like, dude, like to your point, and I didn't read the notes, so that's my bad. But dude, when I went to like 6, 7, 8, 9, I mean, bro, you are just so fatigued because you're coming down slow with tempo. But I really enjoyed that. And I supersetted it and it was great. And everything about it was awesome. Yesterday I had done weighted back rack lunges. When's the last time you did weighted lunges?
So I actually did them heavy yesterday.
Dude,
and we're going to be adding
obnoxiously sore.
I've been doing them quite a bit as part of this like high rocks prep. I do the sandbag lunges like 3-4 days a week, but lunges is something where if you haven't been doing them in a while, they will light you up every single time. It's one of those movements.
Bro, I did the lunges yesterday as part of a 15-minute AMRAP. And bro, I got in the car today. I was like, Caden, my ass is sore. It always sounds weird when you say that, but lunges just affect you so differently. I had a question about high rocks. So a buddy of mine's doing Vegas, which
nice.
is actually like basically happening right now. And he was asking me if he could borrow a med ball. So I'm giving him a med ball. And he said that when he's doing the medicine balls, it's becoming an issue because he's sweating so much by the time he gets there. He says that a lot of the elites are actually wearing gloves. But I recommended to him wearing a wristband because if it's sweat coming down his arm, then it wouldn't affect him. Have you seen elites wearing gloves? I mean, I don't pay enough attention.
I mean, in video clip, now that I think about it, yes, I have seen it, but not like a noticeable amount or anything.
Dude, wearing gloves for wall balls just seems so obnoxious and unnecessary.
It seems a little obnoxious for sure.
Right? I mean, dude, I remember back in the day when I was competing at CrossFit, if I had a lot of sweat on my hands, which I wasn't that guy. I know we talked about this on the previous podcast, like sweating is an indicator of your performance. But anyways, some people sweat more than others. But I would wear wristbands, and those would really help because, a lot of times, and for anybody listening who's like in the middle of a workout who finds that their hands are getting super sweaty, typically it's a byproduct of the sweat going down your wrists and whatnot. So if you wear wristbands, it could be really, really helpful. So something to consider. And that's what I told him instead of wearing gloves. Because, dude, I wouldn't have wanted to do the whole high rocks with gloves on.
No,
I mean,
absolutely not. That would drive me nuts.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do that. So actually this weekend in Vegas, O'Keefe, Matt Frazier, and I got a couple other buddies that are doing it. Hunter, I think, is going for the world record, right? That's what he's been training for.
That's right. Yeah. Cause it's, and I have no idea how this works. I haven't been this into it, but that group, the Elite 15, I don't know how you qualify for the group. I don't know what that means, but I know it's like obviously a group of like the top 15 athletes. They don't race at every race, but this is one of the ones where they race at. Like they do their own or their own heat, their own race, and it's kind of like an event.
Is that right? That's the way the High Rocks works. Because we talked about this on the show in the previous, when Gabe and I did it, it was like heats of 60 every 10 minutes, was it? All day. And so when you started, there was definitely some fire breathers in our heat for sure. But they kind of like went off and did their own thing. And then the previous heat before us, there was definitely some guys who were just like, they were getting after it, you could tell. But the Elite 15, they tell them throughout the year, like, hey, we're going to do these 3 or 4 events. Is that the way it's going? It's like, is that the way it works?
I guess. Yeah. I just asked my AI friend. So let's see what it says. But yeah, I guess it's not every race, but it is in this race. And this race isn't like the world championship or anything. So I'm not sure how it works or what the qualification process is.
I wonder, open registration. So the open is a month away. Have you looked at open registrations? Have you kept up at all with that?
No, but I know it's down, but you might know this better than me. Is it that are they tying the prize money for the eventual games winners based on how many people sign up for the open? Like, are they getting a cut of that?
Yeah, Liz might be able to pull it up. Basically what they're doing is they're trying to incentivize. They're like giving, if I'm not mistaken, it's like 50% of the revenue that they generate through the CrossFit Games Open is being utilized towards the games, prizes, and other stuff. So what they were saying is that if 300,000 or 400,000 people registered, the prize purse would actually have gone up compared to the years past. But I think what they're doing is, dude, if the numbers don't go up, I actually think those prize purses are going to significantly drop. And so it looks like this all changes for the 2025 CrossFit Games prize purse. One big thing, CrossFit is betting big on community backing as it will now fund the prize purse for the season based upon 50% of every $20 open registration fee. Yeah, so that's same thing I was saying.
Yeah, so I guess the thinking there is trying to get CrossFit Games athletes to promote the open?
Well, that, and then also just trying to say, I think I think it's twofold, right? It's one is trying to get CrossFit Games and affiliates and everybody, because I also think there's like they're trying to get everybody to back the registration. Number one. Number two, it does hedge their bets a little bit, right? Like,
sure.
So think about it this way. If you're only giving up 50% of the registration on the prizes, your prize might be $100,000 for the winner instead of 250 or 300 because you didn't have the open registration. So the justification is the registration was down. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, they're kind of protecting their interests as well in this. Like if they win, like everybody wins type of thing.
Yeah. But how much of a bummer is that if it ends up being like historically low, which it might be, right?
Yeah. And Liz could maybe pull this up, but the Morning Chalk Up's been updating their Make WODs Great Again or something like that has been tracking the open attendance every day. And, typically what you'll see at the CrossFit Games Open is that you're going to see a big spike towards the end, right? You're going to see a big spike right before the open starts. And we're still like 28 days away. So it's still plenty of time. But as of right now, the registration is down, according to what I read, 40%, which is pretty significant. That's actually really significant, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, man, it's a bummer. It's a bummer because like I said, in the last episode we recorded, like it's so cool to have those data points and still go back and like revisit them every now and then and like talking smack with your buddies. Like if you're still working out, like it's a cool, motivating thing to see kind of like how you do. But, and you think back on like the Friday Night Lights and the times where like, it was just such a fun time in the season, such a cool event. Like people would get their first muscle ups, people would PR their lifts, like people would go there that never go there. And like, they would hit like a level of intensity that you just can't in class. And that would be cool, like cool experience as a coach, cool experience as like, a fellow athlete. And, I think that because of lack of like evolving what this thing is, or just a lot of like miscommunication and missteps, it's just like, it's obviously fizzled. And maybe it was inevitable that it was going to fizzle, because how many years in a row can you kind of keep doing the same thing and keep the same level of excitement? But it's almost like a bummer to see that it hasn't, maintained its excitement. But that being said, like, I mean, I know I'm one of many people that used to be super into it and is no longer into it at all. Like you couldn't convince me to sign up for the Open this year and commit to all the workouts or whatever. Like, I might cherry pick one that like looks really fun and is in my wheelhouse to talk some shit. But like,
we should cherry pick one, talk shit, and then see who wins.
We should do it for the home team challenge.
Oh, we should do it. Dude, speaking of which, home team challenge, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 sit-ups. So unnecessary, bro. Like, just, dude, it's just so unnecessary. I come home, so yesterday Ava had this thing at the school she wants to go to. So I come home with her and dude, the garage door is open. I was like, that's weird. And the lights were off. I was like, that's weird. Normally if the garage door is open, the lights are on. And so it's at night and Drake is playing. And I'm like, what the I was like, what is going on here? So I show up, garage door is open, lights are off, Drake is playing. Ava and I walk out and I'm like, what is going on? And Caden is sitting there with a barbell doing bicep curls, the 15-pound barbell. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? He's like, yeah.
Amazing.
He's like, this is what he said. I think he's full of shit. He goes, what do you say? He's like, oh yeah, I ended up doing 500 or 200 curls and 200 sit-ups or something like that until dinner was ready. And I was like, all right, dude, like, I don't think you did 200 curls, the 15-pound barbell. He wakes up this morning, he's like, I'm not sore at all. I'm like, all right. Anyways, that was my day last night. That was my night.
I wonder who he gets it from.
You know what? That's why I can't get too mad. But in regards to the Open, to kind of close the loop on that, I do want to see it be successful. I hope that registration goes up. And, I just think that it's evolved. I know at our Mountain View gym, it'll be cracking, and same with Campbell, but it's just, it's not cracking like the way it was before. But, that's just evolution of things, man. That's the way it goes. And it goes back to this whole idea of seasons, right? We talked about this before. It's like there's going to be seasons of your life, and just enjoy them while you're in them, because they're going to evolve. They're going to change. And if you're in a season right now where, dude, you're hella fired up on name the thing, like embrace it, enjoy it, because that season's going to change. And it might change before you even know it, like especially when it comes to kids and stuff. That's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, man, you got to enjoy every single moment. By the way, I did look it up. It's actually pretty cool. So the Elite 15, it's a rolling leaderboard throughout the season of just the 15 fastest times. So there's just the 15 fastest times, because High Rocks is the same
Who's
event.
in the fastest time right now this year?
I don't know. That I have to look up. But that's what makes up the Elite 15. So you're in the Elite 15 if you've posted at some point in the year one of the 15 fastest High Rocks times. So
that's
it's cool,
a pretty
because,
big deal, actually.
Yeah,
if you're part of the Elite 15, that's a big deal.
And at any race, you can bump someone out of the Elite 15 or get yourself in if you literally just crack that top 15 time, which is cool.
Wow. So yeah, the more you do, the fastest High Rocks time, it was Hunter, 53 minutes and 22 seconds. Dude, honestly,
obnoxious.
The part that makes me like offended by that, it's almost like the way I feel offended about Dennis Marshall, who's so strong at 46 or whatever he is. For Hunter McIntyre to do a 53-minute High Rocks, Gabe and I, now take this with a grain of salt, we got 107. And now granted, I think Gabe probably would have gone faster because my runs are a little bit slower. But dude, we got 107 together. And that was us sharing the obstacles and running together. He got us by 14 minutes.
Yeah,
14 minutes. Like that's substantial, right? I mean, think about it, you're on, 8 runs? So that means basically each lap, he beat us by about 2 minutes.
Yeah, and he probably beat us in some of the stations, which is kind of crazy to think about, but yeah.
Oh, man. All right, well, I'll leave you with this concept. So I was looking up, I sent you this. Actually, I want to hear about this text you got from a client of yours.
Yeah, man. Dude, so yesterday, let me read it to you because it's pretty cool. And I think it goes to a lot of the things that we work with, a lot of the Train Hard guys. And I'm sure you've heard stuff like this from your Train Hard men's clubs people, and just like stuff like this fires you up, man. So he texts me, he goes, just finished my VO2 max run. So he's training for high rocks and also just, trying to work on some body composition changes. So we're kind of like balancing those two things. So he said, just finished my VO2 max run and I feel like I could run through a brick wall right now. Haha. Week is going well. Hasn't been too tough to get down to 2,300 calories because we lowered his macros a little bit. And then he followed that up because I was like, dude, there's no better feeling than that post-workout feel after you get like a really good run in, because he hit his paces. Like I gave him goal paces. They were pretty aggressive and he like just nailed them. And I knew it was like going to be a hard effort, but like the fact that he nailed them, like just such a good feeling. And he goes, absolutely feels like an increased endorphins bleed into the rest of my day too. Just had a super productive meeting about 45 minutes ago after the run, where the mind felt clear and I had the energy to deliver some tough messages to the rest of the management team. Excited to keep this going. And it was just so cool, man, because everything that we do through fitness and nutrition, whether it's like one of the clients that I work with, whether it's your Train Hard Men's Club guys, whether it's someone on the Train Hard app following TH5, like those things are a catalyst, because the real goal is for you to go and crush at work, with family, like that stuff. Like that's the real goal. But the thing is, like, we can do that through fitness. We don't necessarily have to do that with like advice on how to like be super clear minded and do really well at work. It's just, if you do these things, if you focus on training, if you have these goals, if you're dialing in your nutrition, you're doing good recovery, like you're just going to show up at like a different level. Yeah. With family, at work. And so to see that without me prompting it, without me asking like, hey, how's this affecting your work? Like just, dude, I felt great. And it made what, seems like it was not the easiest meeting to have at work, like something that was just like, boom, I crushed that, is just, it was such a cool example and reminder of like the power of the stuff that we do, because it goes beyond, this is going to improve your fitness, improve your body composition, improve all that. This is just making men better. And that's the fucking goal. So I was super fired up. I wanted to share that.
Dude, that's great. I love that, man. I think that's exactly what we're doing at the men's club. And that's the feedback. That's the reason why I get so juiced up about it. It has taken, if I'm being, the men's club has grown to a point now where it's kind of like a blessing, but also a challenge at the same time, because what started off as just like a small group, and I've always had the intention of trying to impact as many men as possible. But now, like, dude, when you're filling a parking lot, you're getting a minimum of 50 guys, the goal is to get 100, 200 guys. It just starts to open up a little bit of liability. And I'm trying to like balance this idea where like, dude, I'm trying to be a good dude. I'm trying to do it for a good reason. I'm trying to be that guy. But at the same time, like, it is risky having 100 guys in a parking lot training hard. And so just kind of balancing that has been something I've been struggling with a little bit lately. But I have to constantly remind myself, like, we'll do what we need to do to try and mitigate some risk with waivers and stuff like that. But I have to be like honest with myself of like, why am I doing this? And if my heart is in the right place, I'm doing this for the right reasons. If I'm really trying to make an impact and not like, then keep doing it. If it feels good, if it feels like the right thing to do, if I feel like I'm driven on this path, I need to stay on that path, even though, because there's so many reasons why you shouldn't do something, right? But if it feels like it's the right thing to do, then you should just do it. It's kind of like what I'm telling myself, right? Because there's so many reasons to say, dude, I shouldn't go bring these bags down. I shouldn't do this type of stuff. But the impact it's making is real, like you're talking about.
Hey, man, I mean, the way you described that just now is exactly how you described last time we recorded with going to the Bible study. And I think that there's, and I think that there's like an important parallel there, right? Of like, having faith that like, if this thing is being done for the right reason, like, yes, all the concerns you have are valid, but maybe there is a piece of like just having faith that it'll take care of itself because it's this thing that's positive, right? Whether, deeply you believe that like, gotta look after the men's club and just make sure that like nothing like that happens. But just having faith that like, if you're doing the right things for the right reason, all and I don't mean be completely irresponsible, but all of the, potential things that could go wrong, they won't. Or if they do, like, you'll figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, dude, because otherwise you just get stuck in this hole where you just won't do anything and you won't try and make an impact on anybody. And I get messages literally every day, Gabe, every day. They say, I want to start a men's club. It's like, well, dude, just stop talking about it and just start doing it. And it's like, I almost feel like they're asking for my permission, or they're thinking I'm going to have some like secret recommendation. It's like, bro, I have no secret recommendation. text message 7 of your friends and just tell them to come work out with you. And like, just start with there. And then you'll see how it evolves. And obviously ours is an extreme case and it's much bigger. But dude, it just starts off with one friend, one call, one engagement. And that's the secret. So if you're listening to this and you're about to message me, don't message me asking me how to start a men's club. Start doing it. Start texting your friends and then message me and be like, bro, I got 3 guys that are showing up and we've been doing it for 3 weeks and it's badass. I'm going to respond back and we're going to have a great conversation about it. That's my tip to you. You know, like don't just talk about it. Go out there and go do it.
And like the one thing that I would add, and I mentioned this like in passing when I was talking about the no drinking thing, but one really cool thing that's happened this year is my old college buddies like reconnected and we all decided to sign up. We're signed up.
For
we're
the
doing
Ironman?
Ironman relay, 6 of us. You know, there's 2 teams of 3 and we're talking shit about like who's going to win. But it's cool because I know that my 5 friends that are a part of this, you know, one's actually an NYPD cop and the others like have different jobs, but like no one's definitely stayed as, you know, deep in fitness as I have. And this in many ways is like them like, you know, having something to train for and they're getting back into like, you know, hey, I'm going to get back in swimming shape. Like I'm going to do the bike. I'm going to do the run. And like, we're all kind of like talking about our training and like whatever. And like, there's like some really cool shit talk. And it's cool because we're all going to stay in a big Airbnb together. A bunch of us are dads now. So a long-winded way of saying that there are many ways where this idea of the Train Hard Men's Club can also be brought to life, even with like people that like aren't in your community, just like old friends. Like reconnecting through fitness, I think is such a powerful thing.
That's what it is.
We can all do by just like maybe message 5 of your old college sports buddies and be like, dude, let's sign up for a race. Like, let's do a marathon. Let's all meet in this city and run this race this year and like meet each other's kids, but like have something athletic that you're doing that I think is just such a good way to reconnect because it's obviously incredibly healthy and has so many benefits. You could always, you know, go on vacation together or find a trip, but I think there's something so cool about it having a fitness component that I'm super pumped and I'll share how it goes but it's been really cool because when someone floated the idea, I was like, dude, there's a 2% chance that this ends up happening, but it's happening. We're signed up and it's going to be so cool. So the same idea can apply even if you're not in a position like we talked about this last time we recorded. Like for a couple of reasons, I'm not, at least in the foreseeable future, short term, start a Train Hard Men's Club here, but there's still ways to connect with other men and have fitness be like the thing that like, you know, keeps you like this, keeps you accountable, all the good stuff that you have because you meet with those guys every Saturday morning. So,
dude, that was good. I like that. That's a good idea. I mean, because I know I'm signing up for a jiu-jitsu tournament and other stuff, but maybe I could do it with other people. You know, if you guys have been listening to the podcast and we're 57 minutes in. I have a simple ask for you, right? Obviously, if you've listened for 57 minutes, you've been listening to other episodes of ours. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast and let a friend know that the podcast has great value, whether it's the home team episodes, whether it's Gabe and I, whether it's all of our guests. We have a ton of guests. So each week you get the home team, you get Gabe and I, you get the guests. And simple ask, right? And I know that we ask it every week, but it's really important to us. Like, leave the podcast a rating review and share it with a friend. That is the only way, just like all the stuff we're doing at the men's club, all the different things we're doing through Train Hard. That's the only way we're going to continue to share the message to level everybody up. And our podcast, in my opinion, is the best avenue. I think we have to do that. Yes, our newsletters are incredible. Yes, we have put out a ton of social media content, but this is long form stuff. We have great conversations and really dive deeper. So make sure to share it. Make sure to leave us a rating review. But all else, most important, today, tomorrow, and every day, keep training hard.